Hi everyone, my name is Anthony. My friends call me Tony, and thank you for having me here today. I currently live in Negombo, Sri Lanka, and I will be sharing my testimony of a transformative experience that I've had. I believe that such moments in our lives aren't one off events, and if we allow ourselves to move beyond the constraints of our ego, we open up an opportunity in our lives for multiple such instances to occur. So, for today's agenda, I'd like to share what I would consider my most significant one to date. But before all of that, a little bit of background. My father comes from a Catholic background. My mother comes from a Hindu background and she converted of her own volition. So, my sister and I were raised Catholic and we both went to Catholic schools. Um, you should also know that my father, he was working in a Catholic school in Pakistan. And so I was born and raised in Pakistan. So the school I went to there, the Catholic school, was also in Pakistan. So it's just to give you a background about what's influenced me growing up. Uh, and so as a student, I'd like to think, an ardent student and did whatever I needed to do to, get through my studies. Outside of school, as far as church and my spirituality was concerned, you know, uh, very devout, or excuse me, rather what I'd like to think is called, understood as devout, followed everything to the dot, did not question anything. I couldn't even understand what the prayers meant or the hymns that we would sing, why we did what we did. And so, yes, I was very procedural. But that's who I was, for those years of my life. Uh, then, after that, I moved to the States for my undergraduate studies. And that's where I ended up taking a course in Zen Buddhism. And this allowed me to be both mindful, practice mindfulness, meditation of all sorts, walking meditation, painting, and so on. I took to it immediately, so much so that even after, despite learning it in 2003, I still practice it to this day, 19 years later. And my practice of Zen meditation is what led me to meeting a near and dear monk and friend of mine whom I deeply respect. And he was instrumental in introducing me to Father Noel Dias, and because of whom I'm here today. So that's my background in a nutshell. But something happened 10 years ago, 2012, on the eve of my, excuse me, 30th birthday. And I actually come back home to be with my family, my parents and sister. Uh, and I was suffering from a severe headache, and I just put that down to, another migraine because I was very prone to migraines. Except this one was the mother of all migraines. It was unbearable. And I just thought it was something that, could be cured with a painkiller, or, you sleep it off. But my sister noticed that I was having these brief moments of, memory loss, where we'd be watching a movie, and within minutes of each, I'll ask the same question, and, be like, "What's the name?" or what have you. And she took note of that and realized something wasn't right. That very same evening, so my father observes me, and he sees me cough, and for a brief moment, I just held my head, and he was like, "Son, you've never done that before. We're getting an MRI done." And I was like, "You're blowing this out of proportion, calm down, it's just a migraine." And something told him. He was like, "No, you've never done this before. we should get an MRI done. And he was adamant, and I'm grateful he was adamant because it was someone else speaking through him. And he's a teacher, he has no idea about what these symptoms mean. All he saw me was cough and touch my head, and then he was like, let's just go to the hospital. So we go to a hospital and we get a scan done, and long story short, now I'm being rushed in an ambulance to Central Hospital in Colombo. And again, the eve of my birthday. And I have no idea what's going on. Everyone's very hush hush. So at this point, your imagination runs wild. And I arrive at the hospital. I'm dosed up on Lord knows what drugs. And at this point, when I see my family, I'm like, just say it, if this is my time to go, just say it, at this point. Like I said, it's just the drugs talking and acceptance of whatever fate awaits me. And that's when they were like, it's not that. You have what we call an AVM, arteriovenous malformation. You can Google it later if you want, but basically it's congenital, so nobody in my family has it because it's not passed down. And it's basically an artery or a vein that's not fully formed, and so it starts leaking blood. So there was one above my brain, under my skull, that was leaking blood behind my left eye, which explained the pain there. And the doctors, I was very lucky to get one of foremost surgeons in the country, again, fluke of luck, Dr. Sunil Pereira. He saw that and he was like, this boy shouldn't be standing. He's got more blood than the threshold, because once you pass that threshold, you just drop. And so, yes, I was taken into surgery on my birthday. And 8 hours later, I was out, and then around 8, I think it was for 8 days, I was recovering in the ICU. And all I had to get me through was prayer and meditation. And time, the days become a blur. You have no idea, no track of time. It's just one long moment. So all I could do was meditate until I was allowed to leave, and they stitched me up and all of that. But the recovery was painful, not physically so much, but mentally, because the procedure, it paralyzed half my face, which happens. So, and I couldn't walk properly, so I had to do a lot of physiotherapy, and that really crushed me. Really crushed me. It makes you think. And I should also mention that a month before this happened, and a month after, I lost 2 friends to the same AVM. So it makes you think, So I was like, is this contagious? It's not, but it's just an uncanny series of coincidences, if you will. But so I had to get through the physio, the recovery part of it, and the only way I could do that was with a lot of introspection. But 5 weeks later, I was back at work, clean bill of health, and 6 months later, when I went to see the doctor, the surgeon again, he was like, I don't have to see you again, you're perfectly fine, just go on, continue living your life. So, but I'll never forget the words where he said, when you first came to me, or when your family brought you to me and you were in pain, you shouldn't have been standing. So that really stuck by me. So it makes you think, and I think about the 2 friends that I lost to the same. And so, after being given this chance, my life outside work, I went back to work and, continued doing what I needed to do. And, but my life outside work changed completely. I studied other forms of meditation, yoga, I took up Reiki, Tai Chi, and dabbled in whatever I could and whenever time permitted. And what's interesting is that when my time with one teacher was complete, another would show up to take the, her or his place. But before I knew it, I started using these tools that I'd learned over the past few years and somehow developed my own way of connecting with the divine that is God. So I'm sure you can appreciate from my childhood what I described, the way I learned or did things, and the way I started doing things now, how everything came full circle. Back then, I didn't see why I was doing the energy healing work that I was doing, or whatever it was that I was pulled to learn. But now, when I look back, the bigger picture makes sense, and that's how God works. I can safely say, though, that now my understanding of God is not what it used to be. Our language, English or whichever language you choose, is very limited. It's unfathomably difficult to articulate who or what God is in few or many words. It can't be done. It can only be experienced. And I'm sure most of you all here would also agree. And I have, come to peace with that. Now I realize, because I was open, God guided me towards the tools I needed to communicate with Him better. More importantly, with all that happened, all that I described, the suddenness, the loss of friends, and the recovery phase, I was taught to be humble, exercise patience, and more importantly, just be grateful. I mean, despite my listing this out to you, I can assure you I struggle with exercising these qualities even today. But it's part of my learning journey. I make an effort to remember and practice them to the best of my ability, but end of the day, I am human after all. So it's what you make of it. For example, these days, because of the power cuts in Sri Lanka, if it becomes unbearable to stay indoors, I use this as an opportunity to go to the nearest church, and all the meditation and energy work that I've learned comes full circle there. So I go to a very quiet church. It's very cool and windy, so which is why I'm there. And that is my moment of conversation with God. The setting is perfect. No one's there, it's quiet. I meditate with Him. And sometimes He's silent, sometimes He's not. But doing so has, allowed me to find the answers that I'm looking for within me. And that's when I realized that God is also within. And I think we're so used to looking externally. God is everywhere. But we completely ignore the fact that, He's also inside all of us. We need to be able to see God within each other. And it's very easy to forget that. So I stopped struggling to reconcile differences, and now instead I merely look for what's common, and that's enough for me. Over time, I learned to change my outlook from why this is happening to me, especially when whatever happened, from why this is happening to me to why this is happening for me. That's very important. And I could go on and on, but I just want to touch upon this crucial moment where everything came full circle and how being open and humble can lead to wondrous things, even saving your life. So I hope I haven't bored all of you this evening. I'm deeply grateful for everyone for their time today. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them later on. Uh, Peace be with you all. Hope you all have a wonderful week ahead, and Amen.